Christmas dinner at my parents' house was supposed to be perfect. My sister Victoria had been bragging about her new boyfriend Marcus all evening, shooting smug looks my way while I sat alone. Then she launched into her favorite topic, mocking my boring job as a fraud investigator. Marcus listened laughing along until my dad proudly mentioned my recent promotion to lead investigator at the Federal Financial Crimes Unit. The color drained from Marcus's face completely. His fork clattered to his plate as he whispered, "You're the investigator handling the Meridian Capital case. Before we dive into this wild family revenge story, let me know where you're watching from. If you're ready to see how Christmas dinner turned into the ultimate justice moment, smash that like button and subscribe for more shocking family drama stories. Trust me, you won't believe what happens next when family loyalty meets federal investigation." My name is Isabella, and until that Christmas dinner, I thought my biggest problem was being the family disappointment. Victoria had always been the golden child, beautiful, charming, engaged to successful men who showered her with expensive gifts. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one who chose a government salary over glamorous corporate jobs. Marcus Rodriguez had entered our family's orbit 6 months earlier, sweeping Victoria off her feet with lavish dates and designer handbags. He claimed to run a successful investment consulting firm, driving a Tesla, and wearing watches that cost more than my yearly rent. My parents adored him constantly, comparing him to my non-existent dating life. That evening started typically. Victoria positioned herself strategically across from me, her engagement ring catching the candlelight as she gestured dramatically. Marcus sat beside her, confident and relaxed, regaling everyone with stories about his latest successful ventures. "Isabella's still chasing paper trails like some glorified accountant," Victoria announced during dessert, her voice dripping with condescension. "Marcus actually creates wealth instead of investigating imaginary crimes." Marcus chuckled, squeezing her hand. "Not everyone can handle the pressure of real business, babe. Government work is perfect for people who prefer stability." The familiar sting of their mockery barely registered anymore. I had learned to tune out Victoria's attempts to diminish my achievements, but then Dad, bless his heart, decided to defend me. "Isabella just got promoted to lead investigator," he said proudly. "She's heading up some major case involving investment fraud. The Meridian Capital thing, right, sweetie?" The change in Marcus was instantaneous and terrifying. His confident smile vanished, replaced by a mask of pure panic. His olive complexion turned ashen gray, and his hands began trembling so violently he had to set down his wine glass. "What did you say?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. "The Meridian Capital investigation," I repeated slowly, studying his face with the same intensity I used when analyzing financial documents. "It's a massive Ponzi scheme that's been operating for 3 years. We're tracking down everyone involved." Victoria looked confused by her boyfriend's sudden transformation. "Marcus, what's wrong? You look sick." But I was already connecting the dots. Marcus's expensive lifestyle, his vague descriptions of his business, his reluctance to discuss specific clients or investments. The timeline of their relationship coincided perfectly with when Meridian Capital's activities had intensified. "I need to use the restroom," Marcus stammered, practically stumbling from his chair. As he rushed away, I noticed him pulling out his phone with shaking hands. Mom frowned. Maybe the turkey didn't agree with him, but I knew better. 20 minutes passed, and Marcus hadn't returned. Victoria went to check on him, returning moments later with a bewildered expression. "He's gone," she announced. "His car isn't in the driveway. He left his coat and everything." The pieces were falling into place with crystal clarity. I excused myself and went to my laptop in Dad's study, logging into the secure database I had access to through work. What I found made my blood run cold. Marcus Rodriguez, real name Marcus Delgado, was listed as a person of interest in the Meridian Capital case. His photograph stared back at me from the screen, along with a detailed profile of his involvement in recruiting new investors for the fraudulent scheme. He had been using a false identity, and worse, he had been systematically targeting wealthy families through romantic relationships. Victoria wasn't just dating a fraud. She was his latest mark. I printed everything I could without compromising the ongoing investigation, my hands steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. This wasn't just about professional duty anymore. This was personal. When I returned to the dining room, Victoria was frantically calling Marcus's phone, her earlier smugness replaced by genuine confusion and hurt. "He's not answering," she said, tears forming in her eyes. "I don't understand what happened." I sat down calmly, folding my hands on the table. "Victoria, I need to ask you something important. Has Marcus ever asked you about our family's finances? About Dad's retirement accounts? Or Mom's inheritance from Grandma?" She looked defensive. "What kind of question is that? We talk about everything. He's interested in my family." "Has he suggested any investments? Asked you to introduce him to your friends with money?" "Isabella, stop interrogating me. You're being paranoid because you can't stand that I found someone successful." But Dad was paying attention now, his expression growing serious. "Honey, answer your sister's questions. This is important." Victoria's face crumpled as the reality began to sink in. He did mention some investment opportunities. He said he could help Dad get better returns on his 401k. And he was excited about meeting the Hendersons next week. He knows they just sold their business. The Hendersons were family friends who had recently made millions from selling their company. If Marcus had been planning to target them next, Victoria had unknowingly been setting up his next victims. I leaned forward, my voice gentle but firm. "Victoria, I think Marcus has been using you. The man you've been dating is connected to a major financial fraud case I'm investigating. He's been stealing people's life savings." The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria stared at me, her face cycling through disbelief, humiliation, and dawning horror. "No," she whispered. "No, that's impossible. He loves me. He was going to propose next month. He bought me this ring." She held up her hand, showing off the diamond that had been the source of so much family discussion. I didn't have the heart to tell her that the ring was probably purchased with stolen money. Money taken from elderly couples and young families who had trusted Marcus with their futures. Mom reached over and squeezed Victoria's hand. "Sweetheart, if Isabella thinks something's wrong, we need to listen to her." For the first time in my life, I wasn't the family disappointment. I was the one who could protect them from a predator who had infiltrated our most sacred space. But as I looked at Victoria's devastated face, I realized this was just the beginning of a much larger battle. The next morning, I arrived at the office 3 hours early, fueled by coffee and righteous anger. My supervisor, Agent Patricia Wong, found me surrounded by printouts and case files, my computer screen displaying Marcus's financial trail. "Bella, it's barely 7 a.m. What's got you here so early?" Patricia asked, settling into the chair across from my desk with her own coffee. "I know this is going to sound incredible, but the Meridian Capital case just became personal." I walked her through the previous evening's events, watching her expression shift from skepticism to amazement. Patricia studied Marcus's photo on my screen. "You're absolutely certain this is your sister's boyfriend?" "Positive. And Patricia, there's more. I stayed up all night digging deeper." I pulled up a series of financial records on my secondary monitor. Marcus hasn't just been working with Meridian Capital. He's been running his own side operation targeting wealthy families through romantic relationships. The evidence was damning. Marcus had been involved in at least 7 relationships over the past 4 years, each with women from affluent families. In every case, he had gained access to family financial information, identified vulnerable relatives or friends, and systematically recruited them into fraudulent investment schemes. "Look at this pattern," I said, highlighting transactions on the screen. Sarah Thompson dated for 8 months. Her father lost his entire retirement account. Jennifer Walsh, 6-month relationship. Her elderly uncle invested his life savings. The amount stolen total over $2 million. Patricia whistled low. "This is beyond organized fraud. This is predatory relationship abuse on a massive scale. The worst part, Victoria's been posting about me constantly on social media. Marcus knows everything about our family. Dad's job at the bank, Mom's inheritance, even which of their friends have money. He's been gathering intelligence for months. I showed Patricia Victoria's Instagram and Facebook accounts. Posts about family gatherings, mentions of our parents' financial security photos from charity events, where Victoria socialized with wealthy donors. Marcus had been mining our family's social connections like a digital gold rush. "We need to move fast," Patricia said. "If he's spooked, he might disappear entirely or worse. Liquidate whatever accounts he can access and flee the country." "There's something else," I said, pulling up another file. I think Victoria might have unknowingly helped him access client information. She works at Meridian Financial Services. Not the same company as Meridian Capital, but the name's similarity isn't coincidental. Patricia's eyes widened. "You think he chose her specifically for her job?" "I'm almost certain. Victoria processes loan applications for high-net-worth individuals. She has access to credit reports, asset statements, and personal financial information for hundreds of wealthy clients. Marcus has been pumping her for information under the guise of caring about her work." My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Can we talk?" "Something feels wrong about last night." I showed Patricia the message. "She's starting to realize something's off. This could work in our favor if we handle it carefully." "Absolutely not," Patricia said firmly. "You cannot involve a civilian in an active federal investigation, especially a family member who's emotionally compromised." "But she's our best asset. She has access to Marcus's personal belongings, his routines, maybe even financial records he keeps at her apartment." "Bella, I understand you want to protect your family, but we have to follow protocol. Any evidence obtained through your sister's involvement could be thrown out in court." I slumped back in my chair, frustrated, but knowing she was right. "So, what do we do?" "Wait for him to disappear and start victimizing another family. We build an airtight case using legitimate investigative methods, and we warn your family to be extremely careful about any contact from Marcus or his associates." Over the next several hours, Patricia and I mapped out a comprehensive investigation strategy. We identified Marcus's known associates, traced his financial accounts through multiple banks, and began coordinating with local law enforcement to monitor his movements. The picture that emerged was chilling. Marcus wasn't working alone. He was part of a sophisticated network that specialized in relationship-based fraud with different members targeting various demographics. Young men pursued wealthy older women, attractive women targeted successful businessmen, and charismatic individuals like Marcus focused on families with social connections. "This is bigger than we initially thought," Patricia said as we reviewed the network structure. "We're looking at a criminal enterprise that's been operating across multiple states." My phone rang. Victoria calling. I looked at Patricia, who nodded reluctantly. "Hey, Vic," I answered, keeping my voice casual. "Isabella, I need to see you. I found something in Marcus's jacket pocket that he left here. I think you might be right about him." My pulse quickened. "What did you find?" "A burner phone, and there are text messages about the Rodriguez operation and new targets. There's also a list of names. Some of them are my clients from work." Patricia was furiously taking notes, gesturing for me to keep Victoria talking. "Victoria, listen to me very carefully. Don't touch anything else, don't look through any more of his belongings, and don't let anyone know you found that phone. Can you bring it to me without anyone seeing you?" "I'm scared, Isabella. What if he comes back? What if he knows I found this?" The fear in my sister's voice ignited a protective fury I had never experienced before. Victoria might have spent years mocking my career choice, but she was still my sister. And Marcus had turned her into an unwitting accomplice in his crimes while stealing her heart in the process. "He's not going to hurt you," I said with more confidence than I felt. "But we need to be smart about this. Are you at your apartment now?" "Yes, I called in sick to work. Isabella, there's more. I remembered something else. Last month, Marcus asked me to invite the Hendersons to dinner. He said he wanted to meet them because he was thinking about moving to their neighborhood. But now I realize he was asking really specific questions about their business sale. The Hendersons, our family friends who had just made millions. Marcus had been planning to use Victoria to gain access to his next major victims. "Bring the phone to my office," I said. "And Victoria, I'm proud of you for recognizing something was wrong and calling me." For the first time in years, my sister's voice softened toward me. "I should have listened to you years ago. You always were the smart one." After I hung up, Patricia looked at me seriously. "This changes everything. If your sister found evidence in his personal belongings, we might be able to build a case that doesn't require her active participation. And if Marcus realizes she found his burner phone, then we better work fast to bring him in before he has a chance to retaliate." Victoria arrived at my office looking like she hadn't slept, clutching Marcus's jacket like evidence in a crime drama. Patricia and I met her in a secure conference room where she carefully placed the burner phone on the table between us. "I keep thinking about all the times he asked about my work," Victoria said, her voice hollow. "He would bring me dinner when I was working late, asking about difficult clients and their financial situations. I thought he was being supportive, but he was gathering information, wasn't he?" Patricia nodded grimly as she examined the phone using latex gloves. "Victoria, I need you to understand something important. What you've discovered makes you a witness in a federal investigation. That means you could potentially be in danger if Marcus realizes what you know." My sister's face went pale. "What kind of danger?" "People who run these types of operations don't like loose ends," I explained gently. "But we're going to protect you. The first thing we need to do is get you somewhere safe while we process this evidence." As Patricia scrolled through the burner phone's contents, her expression grew increasingly serious. "Bella, you need to see this." The text messages revealed a conspiracy far more extensive than we had imagined. Marcus wasn't just targeting individual families. He was part of a coordinated effort to infiltrate financial institutions across the region. The messages discussed inside assets at various banks, credit unions, and investment firms. One message thread made my blood run cold. "Rodriguez operation proceeding as planned. Inside asset has identified premium targets. Henderson family confirmed for next phase. Asset's sister is federal investigator but appears unaware of operation. Recommend expediting timeline." "Inside asset," Victoria whispered, reading over my shoulder. "That's me, isn't it? I'm the inside asset." The betrayal was written across her face. Not just romantic betrayal, but the realization that she had been used as a weapon against innocent people. Some of the names on Marcus's target list were her clients' people who trusted her with their financial information. "Victoria," I said carefully, "I need you to think back to any conversations where Marcus asked about specific clients, even casual mentions of their names or financial situations." She buried her face in her hands. "Oh God, Isabella. The Morrison family. They just inherited $3 million from a deceased relative. I mentioned it because they were so grateful, and Marcus asked all these questions about how they planned to invest it. And Mrs. Patterson, the widow, who's been coming in about her husband's life insurance payout. Marcus suggested we invite her to dinner sometime." Patricia was documenting everything, but I could see the protective anger building in her eyes. She had teenage daughters herself and understood the violation Victoria was experiencing. "There's something else," Patricia said, showing us another message thread. "They're planning to accelerate their timeline because they know we're getting close. Look at this message from yesterday afternoon. Federal heat increasing on Meridian Capital. Initiate exit protocols for all relationship operatives. Rodriguez compromised through family connection. Liquidate accessible accounts and prepare for extraction." "Extraction?" Victoria asked. "They're planning to disappear with whatever money they can steal before we can stop them," I explained. "But this message proves they don't know how much we've discovered. They think Marcus was just unlucky to encounter me at Christmas dinner. Patricia's phone buzzed with an urgent message. She read it quickly, her expression growing more serious. We just got word that large withdrawals have been made from several Meridian Capital accounts in the past 12 hours. They're liquidating funds. The implications hit me immediately. They're stealing everything they can before fleeing. Those are people's retirement savings college funds for their children, money families saved for decades. How much are we talking about? Victoria asked. Based on our preliminary investigation, potentially $15 to $20 million, Patricia replied. The room fell silent as the magnitude of the theft sank in. This wasn't just financial fraud. It was the systematic destruction of innocent families' futures. I have an idea, I said slowly, but it's risky and probably against protocol. Patricia raised an eyebrow. I'm listening, but I reserve the right to shut this down if it's too dangerous. What if we use Marcus's assumption that I don't know about his operation? What if Victoria contacts him, says she's confused about last night and wants to understand what happened? Absolutely not, Patricia said immediately. We are not using your sister as bait. Wait, Victoria interrupted. What if I'm not bait? What if I'm the trap? Both Patricia and I stared at her. Victoria's voice grew stronger as she continued. Marcus thinks he's been so clever manipulating me for months, but now I know what he's doing. What if I play along, make him think I'm still clueless, and help you gather more evidence? Victoria, these people are dangerous, I protested. If they suspect you know anything, they've already stolen from my clients, she said fiercely. Mrs. Patterson is 87 years old and living on that insurance money. The Morrison family has special needs children they're trying to provide for. Marcus used my relationship with these people to hurt them. I can't just sit back and do nothing. I saw something in my sister that I had never recognized before. A core of steel beneath her polished exterior. Victoria might have been the golden child who coasted on her charm, but when cornered, she was willing to fight. Patricia was shaking her head. Even if I wanted to consider this, which I don't, we couldn't guarantee your safety. These operations typically have contingency plans that include eliminating witnesses. But I'm not a witness yet, Victoria pointed out. As far as they know, I'm still the inside asset. Marcus left in a panic, but he doesn't know I found his phone or that Isabella and I have talked. If I play this right, I could help you save those families' money. I found myself torn between protecting my sister and recognizing the unique opportunity her position presented. Victoria had access to Marcus that we couldn't get any other way. She could potentially help us track down where the stolen funds were being moved. There might be a way to do this safely, I said reluctantly. If we wire Victoria and coordinate with a surveillance team. No, Patricia said firmly. I won't authorize putting a civilian in that kind of danger, especially the family member of an agent working the case. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Isabella, this is Marcus. I know last night was confusing, but I can explain everything. Meet me at Riverside Park at 8 p.m. Come alone and don't involve your work in this. Victoria's safety might depend on your discretion. The three of us stared at the message in shock. He's threatening Victoria, I said, my voice tight with anger. Or he's trying to contain the situation by dealing with you directly, Patricia countered. Either way, you are absolutely not meeting him alone. But this is our chance, Victoria said urgently. If he thinks he can manipulate Isabella the same way he manipulated me, we can turn that against him. Patricia stood up abruptly. I need to call my supervisor. This situation just escalated beyond our authority level. We're dealing with an active threat against a federal agent. As she stepped out to make the call, Victoria grabbed my hand. Isabella, I'm sorry for all the years I made fun of your work. I never understood how important it was until now. You're not just chasing numbers, you're protecting people from monsters. For the first time since Christmas dinner, I smiled. Thanks, Vic, but we're going to get through this together. I'm not going to let Marcus hurt you or anyone else. But even as I said the words, I couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus's desperation made him more dangerous than ever. And if we weren't careful, our family was about to become his final victims. Patricia returned with backup and a plan that surprised us all. We're going to let you meet Marcus, but you won't be alone. We'll have surveillance teams positioned throughout the park, and you'll be wearing both audio and video recording devices. What about Victoria? I asked. She's going to federal protective custody until this is resolved. Her safety is non-negotiable. Victoria shook her head. I want to help finish this. These people destroyed lives using my relationships with clients. I need to see it through. You've already helped more than you know, Patricia assured her. The information on that burner phone led us to freeze several offshore accounts before they could be emptied. You saved millions of dollars. As evening approached, I found myself walking through Riverside Park, with recording equipment hidden beneath my winter coat. The sun had set, and the December air bit at my exposed skin. Marcus emerged from behind a cluster of bare trees, looking haggard and desperate. Isabella, thank you for coming, he said, approaching with his hands visible. I know how this must look. How what must look, Marcus? You disappeared from Christmas dinner after learning about my job. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I now recognized as calculated manipulation. I panicked because I thought you might have heard my name in connection with some business associates who've had legal troubles. I didn't want that to reflect poorly on Victoria or your family. What kind of legal troubles? Investment disputes. Nothing criminal, just civil litigation about market performance. The lies rolled off his tongue with practiced ease. But I realized running away made everything worse. I love your sister, Isabella. I want to marry her. Through my earpiece, I heard Patricia's voice. He's lying. We just confirmed 3 more families filed police reports about investments he recommended. Keep him talking. Victoria's been worried sick, I said, moving closer to get better audio quality. She found some of your things when you left so suddenly. A flash of panic crossed his features. What things? Your jacket, your phone. I watched as his face went completely white. She was hoping to return them when you explained where you went. My phone was in the jacket. She mentioned finding one, yes. Marcus, if there's something you need to tell me about your business now would be the time. I might be able to help you resolve any misunderstandings. For a moment, I thought he might confess everything. His shoulders sagged, and he looked genuinely defeated. But then his expression hardened, and I saw the predator beneath the charming facade. You don't understand the situation you've stumbled into, he said, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. Your sister has been very helpful to my associates. If anything happens to me, if any arrests are made, Victoria's cooperation will become public knowledge. Her career will be destroyed. Are you threatening my sister? I'm explaining reality. Victoria has provided client information that led to several successful investments. From a legal standpoint, she's an accomplice whether she knew it or not. The manipulation was breathtaking in its cruelty. Even now, caught and cornered, Marcus was trying to use Victoria's love against our family. How many families have you stolen from? I asked directly. Stolen? That's a harsh word. I connected people with investment opportunities. Some performed better than others. The Hendersons. You were planning to target them next, weren't you? Marcus smiled coldly. The Hendersons are lovely people. Victoria speaks about them so fondly. It would be unfortunate if they learned about her role in identifying high-value targets. Agent Chin, move in now. Patricia's voice crackled through my earpiece. He just made direct threats. But before the surveillance team could reach us, Marcus pulled out a second phone. One call from me and my associates will release documentation showing Victoria's involvement to the State Banking Commission, her employer, and local media. Your sister's life will be ruined. You son of a... Language, Isabella. We're family now. His smirk was pure malice. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to recommend that your investigation focus on the Meridian Capital executives, not the independent contractors like myself. In exchange, Victoria's name stays out of any reports. The recording equipment was capturing everything, but I needed more details for the prosecution team. How many independent contractors are there? Enough to make this investigation very complicated if you choose to pursue it. But I think you'll find that protecting your sister's reputation is more important than your career ambitions. That's when I heard the most beautiful sound in the world, Patricia's voice, coming from behind Marcus, not through my earpiece. FBI Marcus Delgado, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Marcus spun around to find himself surrounded by federal agents, their weapons drawn. His confident facade crumbled instantly, replaced by the panicked desperation of a cornered animal. You can't prove anything, he shouted as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. I want my lawyer. We have your burner phone, your text messages, and a recorded confession of extortion, Patricia replied calmly. Plus testimony from 17 victims across 4 states. As Marcus was led away, he looked back at me with pure hatred. This isn't over. You have no idea how deep this goes. But I was smiling for the first time in days. Actually, Marcus, it's completely over. We've been monitoring your associates' communications for the past 6 hours. They're all being arrested simultaneously. The coordination had been flawless. While Marcus thought he was threatening me into compliance, federal agents across 3 states had been executing search warrants and making arrests. The entire network was being dismantled in real time. Patricia approached as the patrol cars disappeared. Outstanding work, Agent Morrison. That recording will seal the case against him. What about his threats against Victoria? Empty intimidation. We have evidence that your sister was an unwitting victim, not a willing participant. Her cooperation actually helped us identify additional victims and freeze their stolen assets. As we walked back through the park, I felt a satisfaction deeper than any professional achievement. Marcus had thought he could manipulate my family's love against us, but instead, that love had become the weapon that destroyed his criminal empire. The next morning brought headlines that vindicated years of patient investigative work. Federal agents dismantle multi-million-dollar romance scam network. The story dominated local news, but the real victory was in the details that didn't make the papers. Victoria sat across from me in the FBI field office, reviewing her formal statement with our Victim Services Coordinator. The transformation in my sister over the past 48 hours was remarkable. The entitled princess who had mocked my career had evolved into a determined advocate for the families Marcus had targeted. I want to personally contact every client whose information was compromised, Victoria told the coordinator. They deserve to hear from me directly about what happened. That's not necessary, the coordinator replied gently. The bank will handle all client notifications. It is necessary, Victoria insisted. Marcus used my relationships with these people to hurt them. The least I can do is look them in the eye and apologize. Patricia entered the room with an update that made everyone smile. The asset recovery team located the primary offshore accounts. We're recovering approximately $18.7 million in stolen funds. $18.7 million, I repeated, hardly believing the number. Marcus wasn't exaggerating about the scope of this operation. The network had been active for almost 5 years, targeting victims across 8 states. Your investigation broke the case wide open. Victoria looked up from her statement. What about the families who already lost money? Can they get it back? Most of them, yes. The recovery process will take several months, but the majority of victims will receive full restitution. Patricia's expression grew more serious. However, there's something else you both need to know. Marcus is cooperating with prosecutors. What kind of cooperation? I asked, though I suspected I wouldn't like the answer. He's providing information about the network's leadership in exchange for a reduced sentence. Apparently, this operation was much larger than we initially realized. Victoria's face hardened. He's still trying to manipulate the system. Let him cooperate, I said firmly. Every piece of information he provides helps us identify more victims and recover more stolen money. His reduced sentence will still be significant. Over the following weeks, the full scope of Marcus's cooperation became clear. The romance scam network had been operating as a franchise system with experienced criminals training new recruits in psychological manipulation and financial fraud. Marcus had been a mid-level operator running his own territory while reporting to a central command structure. His information led to additional arrests in 12 states and the recovery of over $40 million in stolen assets. But more importantly, it revealed the systematic nature of relationship-based financial fraud and led to new federal guidelines for investigating these crimes. The preliminary hearing was held on a gray February morning. I sat in the gallery with Victoria, watching Marcus shuffle into court in an orange jumpsuit. His expensive clothes and confident demeanor replaced by the reality of federal custody. His lawyer attempted to portray him as a small player, caught up in a larger conspiracy. But the prosecution's case was devastating. Victim after victim testified about the trust Marcus had built, the love he had feigned, and the financial devastation he had caused. Mrs. Patterson, the elderly widow Victoria had mentioned, delivered particularly powerful testimony. "He didn't just steal my money," she said, her voice steady despite her tears. "He stole my faith in people. He made me feel like a fool for believing someone could care about me." Victoria gripped my hand as Mrs. Patterson spoke, tears streaming down her own face. After the hearing, she approached Mrs. Patterson in the hallway. "I'm so sorry," Victoria said simply. "I never should have trusted him with information about you." Mrs. Patterson studied my sister's face for a long moment, then reached out and took her hands. "Dear, you were victimized too. He used your caring nature as a weapon. Don't carry guilt for his choices." The exchange summarized something I had been thinking about throughout this entire ordeal. Marcus had succeeded because he understood how to weaponize human connection. He had turned love, trust, and family loyalty into tools for theft and manipulation, but those same human connections had also been his downfall. Victoria's love for our family had motivated her to investigate when something felt wrong. My protective instincts toward my sister had driven me to dig deeper into the case. Even Mrs. Patterson's capacity for forgiveness demonstrated the resilience that Marcus could never truly destroy. The sentencing hearing took place 6 weeks later. Marcus received 12 years in federal prison, followed by supervised probation and a lifetime ban from working in financial services. More importantly, the judge ordered him to pay full restitution to all identified victims, secured by the seizure of any assets he might acquire in the future. As he was led away in handcuffs, Marcus looked directly at Victoria and mouthed, "I'm sorry." For a brief moment, I saw genuine remorse in his expression, but it was far too late for apologies to matter. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded us with questions about the case and its implications for romance scam prevention. Victoria handled the attention with surprising grace, using the opportunity to advocate for better victim support services and financial fraud education. "People need to understand that these criminals are professionals," she told one reporter. "They study human psychology and exploit our deepest needs for connection and security. Being victimized doesn't make someone gullible or weak. It makes them human." Watching my sister transform her trauma into advocacy was perhaps the most satisfying aspect of the entire case. Marcus had intended to break her spirit and use her as a tool for hurting others. Instead, he had awakened a strength she didn't know she possessed. The final piece of justice came 3 months after sentencing, when the Victim Restitution Fund was fully distributed. Every family that had been targeted by Marcus's network received full compensation for their losses, plus interest for the time their money had been stolen. Mrs. Patterson sent Victoria a handwritten note that simply read, "Thank you for helping catch the monster. Your courage saved other families from the pain I experienced." That note became Victoria's most treasured possession, more valuable than any expensive gift Marcus had ever given her. It represented the transformation of her greatest mistake into her proudest moment. As I reflected on the case months later, I realized that Marcus had been wrong about almost everything. He thought my boring job made me weak, but it had given me the skills to expose his crimes. He thought Victoria's trust made her an easy target, but it had made her a formidable ally once she understood what was happening. Most importantly, he thought family loyalty was a weakness he could exploit, but it had become the foundation of his destruction. 6 months after Marcus's sentencing, I found myself back at my parents' house for another family dinner. But this time, everything was different. Victoria sat beside me, not across from me, and instead of mocking my career, she was asking detailed questions about financial crime prevention. "I've been thinking about going back to school," she announced over Mom's famous lasagna. "Maybe getting a degree in criminal justice or forensic accounting." Dad nearly choked on his wine. "Really? But you love working at the bank." "I love helping people," Victoria corrected. "I thought I was doing that by processing their loans, but now I realize I could do so much more. Isabella showed me that protecting people's financial security is one of the most important jobs in the world." The pride in her voice made my throat tight with emotion. For years I had craved this kind of recognition from my family, but receiving it under these circumstances felt bittersweet. Mom reached across the table and squeezed both our hands. "I'm proud of both my daughters. Victoria for her courage in helping catch those criminals, and Isabella for the work she's always done to protect innocent families." "Speaking of which," I said, "I have some news. The FBI offered me a promotion to the Financial Crimes Task Force headquarters in Washington. It's a significant career advancement." Victoria's face fell slightly. "That's wonderful, but it means you'll be moving away." Actually, I turned it down. Everyone stared at me in surprise. "I realized something during this case," I continued. "The most important work isn't necessarily the highest profile cases or the biggest promotions. Sometimes it's staying close to the community you're protecting and building the relationships that make effective law enforcement possible." I had also realized that my relationship with Victoria was worth more than any career advancement. We had spent so many years as adversaries that I didn't want to waste the opportunity to finally be real sisters. "Besides," I added with a grin, "someone needs to keep an eye on Victoria if she's going to start investigating financial crimes. She has good instincts, but she needs better training in recognizing manipulation tactics." "Hey!" Victoria protested, laughing. "I've gotten much better at spotting liars." "That's true," I acknowledged. "You called me within hours of finding that burner phone. The old Victoria might have spent weeks making excuses for Marcus's behavior." The conversation turned to lighter topics, but I noticed something beautiful happening throughout the evening. Victoria asked genuine questions about my work. Dad shared stories about interesting cases at his bank, and Mom talked about the financial literacy classes she had started teaching at the community center after learning about romance scams from our case. Marcus had intended to infiltrate and destroy our family, but instead, he had brought us closer together around a shared mission of protecting others from financial predators. After dinner, Victoria and I sat on the back porch sharing a bottle of wine and watching the sunset. The December air was crisp, but not unpleasant with our coats and the warmth of the wine. "I owe you an apology," Victoria said suddenly. "Not just for the Marcus situation, but for years of dismissing your work and making you feel like you weren't successful enough." "Vic, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. I was jealous of you, and I handled it terribly." She took a sip of wine before continuing. "You always knew exactly what you wanted to do with your life. You had this sense of purpose that I envied. I was just drifting from job to job, relationship to relationship, trying to figure out who I was supposed to be." I never knew you felt that way. Because I hid it behind criticism and condescension. It was easier to tear you down than to build myself up. Victoria's voice grew stronger. But watching you work this case, seeing how you protected not just me, but dozens of families I'll never meet, that's the kind of person I want to become. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, processing years of misunderstanding and resentment that were finally being released. You know what the strangest part is? I said eventually. Marcus thought he was so clever using our family dynamics against us. He saw that you dismissed my work and thought he could exploit that. But he never understood that underneath all our bickering, we actually love each other. That's what these predators never get, Victoria agreed. They think cynicism makes them smart, but they completely miss the power of genuine human connection. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. New case just came in. Romance scam targeting military families. Interested in being the lead investigator. I showed Victoria the message, and her eyes lit up with the same excitement I felt when starting a new investigation. Can I help with the victim interviews? She asked. I mean, once I finish my criminal justice degree and get proper training. Actually, there might be a way for you to help right now. We need someone who understands the banking industry and can relate to victims who've been manipulated. You could work as a victim services coordinator while you're in school. The possibility of working together professionally felt like the perfect resolution to our complicated family history. We had spent years competing with each other, but now we could channel that energy into protecting other families from experiencing what we had been through. There's one more thing, I said, pulling an envelope from my jacket pocket. I wrote you a letter the night after Marcus's arrest, but I never gave it to you. I was going to wait until after the trial, but I think now is the right time. Victoria opened the envelope with trembling hands and read silently for several minutes. When she looked up, her eyes were wet with tears. You wrote that you were proud of me. Every word of it. You could have hidden from this situation, let shame and embarrassment keep you silent. Instead, you found the courage to confront an incredibly dangerous person and help save other families from being victimized. We hugged for a long time, two sisters who had finally found their way back to each other through the worst and best moments of our lives. As the evening stars began to appear, I thought about all the families Marcus had targeted and all the victims his network had created. But I also thought about the strength those families had shown in rebuilding their lives, the justice they had received, and the prevention work that would protect future victims. Marcus had been wrong about everything that mattered. He thought love made people weak, but it had made us stronger. He thought family loyalty was a vulnerability to exploit, but it had become the foundation of his defeat. Most importantly, he thought his intelligence made him superior to his victims. But he had never understood the most important truth of all: genuine human connection will always be more powerful than manipulation and deceit. So, here's my question for everyone watching this story. Have you ever experienced that moment when someone you trusted completely betrayed that trust? When you realized that what you thought was love was actually manipulation? Share your story in the comments below, because your experience might help someone else recognize the warning signs before it's too late. If this story opened your eyes to the reality of romance scams and financial fraud, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life justice stories. And don't forget to share this video with anyone who might benefit from understanding how these predators operate. Thank you for watching my family's journey from betrayal to justice. Remember, the best revenge against people who try to destroy families is building stronger connections with the people you love. Stay safe out there and trust your instincts when something feels wrong.